So today we're going to talk about linear key features, okay? And the linear key, so first thing I want us to do is I want to write down what the key features are, and then we're going to talk about how to find them. So you are responsible for being able to find them from a graph and from a table, okay? And again, most of these key features you should already recognize. Slope, y-intercept equation. We're only adding in one new feature. All right, so the key features are okay, so the first key feature is slope, which we're going to label M. The y-intercept, which we're going to label B. There should be no surprises so far. Our third key feature is new. It's the x-intercept, which we're going to label Z. Okay, and then the equation of the line. So the equation in y equals mx plus b format. Okay, so those are our key features. The slope, which we're labeling M, the y-intercept we're labeling B, the x-intercept we're labeling Z, and the equation, which we're labeling y equals mx plus b. All right? These are the four things that you have to know about. Now, obviously, we learned about all three forms of linear equations. We learned about slope, intercept, point slope, and standard form. But from slope, intercept, you can almost get to any of them. So if we can write it in slope, intercept form, we have a lot of really useful information that we can use. We could put, if we can write it in slope, intercept form, we can stick that in our calculator. We can use that to find any points we want to. We can turn slope, intercept form into standard form. So we have a lot more choices once we get it in slope intercept form. Okay, so I'm writing these in different colors so you guys can kind of keep track of it, but I mean, y'all don't have to. I'm also going to be using two different highlighters, but for reals, the only reason I'm doing that is because, like, on a test, they're not going to probably ask me to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. They're going to ask me to find one of them, so I need to be able to highlight. I just want y'all to be able to tell the difference. Okay, so first thing we're going to look, what do you think is the easiest thing to find? Okay, I don't know if you saw what just happened when I put my pen down. What am I pointing at? Like, I literally put my pen down and moved it right to the y-intercept. Okay? Well, but the y-intercept is the one that we're kind of like, I don't want to say like hard-coded, but it's the one that we've been kind of like conditioned to jump right to. So the y-intercept is the easiest one to find, okay? So let's talk about the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis, okay? And it always starts with a 0. So it's going to be 0, comma, something, okay? Now, when you're taking a test and they ask you for y-intercept, I would 100% of the time, honestly, I would highlight the y-axis. Because if I highlight the y-axis, it's going to make the y-intercept jump out to me even more. Okay, in this case, my y-intercept is 0, 6. Okay, then that's B. All right? So again, it's where the line crosses the y-axis, and it always starts with a 0. Okay? And for those of you who think my videos are too long, if this was not a video I was teaching a lesson on, I'd be going a whole lot faster. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so now, if I was going to find the x-intercept, which is the z, y'all can ask questions, it's okay. If I was going to find the x-intercept, I would highlight the x-axis, and then I would look, where does my line cross? And it crosses right there. Okay, yeah, exactly. So it crosses at -4, 0. Okay? So my x-intercept, or my 0, is where the line crosses the x-axis. Okay? And the y-intercept starts with 0. The x-intercept always ends with 0. So that ordered pair is going to be something, comma, 0. All right? So far these two are pretty easy, right?
Miss, what if it can start with 0 if it goes right through the origin?
Well, it can still, that's a great question. If it goes to the origin, its x-intercept is 0, 0. And its y-intercept is 0, 0. Because, so like, let me show you an example. Actually, and we're going to do this one in a minute. When I have a function that's like a proportional direct variation, it does go through the origin. So like, if I write down, so if I were to put the origin in a table, sorry about that, it starts with 0 and it ends with 0. So if it starts with 0, 0, 0 is my y-intercept. If it ends with 0, 0, 0 is my x-intercept. So when it goes to the origin, your x and y-intercept are the same. Okay? That's a very good question. All right. So now, the next one we're going to find is slope. So what I want y'all to do is I want you to pick 2 points that you're going to use to find slope. I don't care which points you use. You pick 2 points. I'm going to pick 2 points. And then we're going to find the slope and we're going to see what we get. Okay?
Pick 2 random points.
Pick 2 points on the line. Okay? So when we pick our points, first of all, the first thing you're always going to do before you find slope is you're always going to sign the line. Okay? The reason we sign the line is because it's okay. We want to know if it's positive or negative. Because if it's a bubble grid question, we can immediately put, if it's positive, we can immediately put a positive and bubble in positive. If it's a multiple choice question, we can eliminate any answers that are negative. You understand what I'm saying? So if we know what sign the slope has, we can eliminate and we can, get our bubble grid situation already in check. And then that way, I don't care whether I'm going up or down. All I care about is how much move once I figure out what the slope is. So that's going to allow me to eliminate answer choices, and it's also going to allow me to not mess up. So when I sign the line on this one, okay, I see that it's positive. Ms. Schulteis has her kids actually write plus. I think she has them write it at the end, but I'm going to have mine write it there. So when I write m equals rise over run, I'm immediately going to put a plus above my slope. If it was negative, I would immediately put a minus. I would immediately bubble minus if I needed to. I would write minus in the answer box if it was a free response question. If it was multiple choice, I'd cross out anything that, you see what I'm saying? I would use that to help me increase my chances of getting the right answer, okay? So, what 2 points did y'all pick? Somebody tell me which 2 points y'all picked.
I picked the x-intercept.
So you picked the intercepts.
Me too.
Did anybody else pick anything different? What'd you pick? 2, 9, and negative 2, 3. Okay, negative 2, 3. I would have, oh yeah. So you picked these 2 points. Great. Anybody else pick anything different? What'd you pick? So you picked the y-intercept and 2, 9? Great. I'm picking these 2 points down here. So what I want you guys to do, it doesn't matter which points you pick, we're all going to get the same slope. Okay? Because one of the features of a linear function is that it doesn't matter which points I use. Any pair of points I use is going to simplify to the same rate of change. Okay? So I'm going to use these 2. You guys use the other ones. Remember, we pick our points, we draw our slope triangle. You can use whichever points you want to use as long as they're on the line. Yeah. Okay? So I went up 3 over 2. So, and then right here, sorry, rise over run, or delta y over delta x.
I'm at 6 over 5.
Count again. You use these. Remember, we're counting the spaces. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Remember, you're counting the spaces. Okay, it's vertical change, so it's rise over run. Okay, remember how everything else is delta y over delta x? Well, delta y is moving along the y, so how much did I change between these y values? 6. How much did I change between the x values? 4, so 6 over 4. Okay? Uh-huh.
Sometimes on the test I get confused because I'll get the answer, but the number will be negative and the line will be positive, and it'll give me different answer choices than what I got. Like it'll be 2/3, but it'll be negative 2/3 for the answer choice.
Is 2/3 also an answer choice?
Or have 3 over 2.
Okay, so the question is, sometimes I get a different answer, like, and is that because, do you think it's because you're having trouble picking the points?
No, I'm fine picking the points. It's just that the answer is just tricky.
Okay, so here's something that you can also do. And this is actually a pretty good strategy. So like, for example, let's pretend that I had an answer choice of 2/3. So let's pretend, and we're not going to do this, but let's say I had an answer choice of, so let's say A was 2 over 3 and B was 3 over 2. Okay? So what you can do, let me get a pencil here. What you can do is you can pick a point, usually the y-intercept, and I can use both of those. So I'm going to rise 2, run 3. Am I on the line? I have made a completely different line using 2/3 as the slope, so that can't be it. Now I rise 3, run 2, and I am right on the line, so I know that's the one I want. So sometimes you can use the slopes they give you, and you can actually move using those slopes and eliminate them that way. So you can go either way. You can either find the slope and pick the answer that matches, or you can use that slope to eliminate answer choices as well. Okay? And if you find yourself getting confused by the answers they give you, try that. Okay. Last thing is the equation. All right. So it's y equals mx plus b format. Well, y equals m. Now notice 3/2, 1.5, 1.5. They're all equivalent. It's okay whichever one you pick. I usually leave it as a fraction, but it's not wrong if you do something else. So I'm going to say y equals 3/2 x, and my y-intercept is plus 6. Okay. Now, real quick up here. On slope, here's what I want to suggest to you, though, is use integer points. Remember, integers are positive and negative whole numbers. We want to use points that are on integers. I'm not trying to figure out where 3 1/3 is. Not about that life, okay? I'm not trying to figure out anything weird, any weird points. I want to use whole number points because they're easy to plot. Yes, ma'am? It's a great question also. So she did this one. So she did delta y over, delta x, and got 6 over 4. Okay, you want to simplify that. And remember, your calculator will do it for you. If you put 6 over 4 in your calculator, it'll simplify it to 3/2 for you. Okay, so it'll simplify it for you. Okay? So yeah, you definitely want to simplify them. All right? Questions about this? Pretty straightforward? Okay, let's go to the next page. Now we're going to talk about the same features, but we're going to talk about them on a table. Okay? So, the easiest things to find, again, are the intercepts. Okay? The y-intercept starts with a 0, and I label it B. Okay? The x-intercept ends with a 0. I label it Z. The reason I label it Z is because on the test, they might call it x-intercept, they might call it 0. If I've labeled this with a Z and they ask me for a 0, am I going to pick the 0 or the B row? The 0. Exactly, it's not a thing. It doesn't start with Z, so why would I even go there? So I want you to constantly be labeling your 0. And honestly, we ought to be doing it here. Labeling it Z here, labeling it B there. Just to keep us in the habit of always thinking of it as a 0. Because those two terms are interchangeable, and it's a common mistake. And when they give you something like this, a question like this, they'll say, what's the 0 of the function? And they'll give you this. They'll give you -4, 0, 0, -4, 0, 6, and 6, 0. Every possible way you could pick the wrong answer. If you wrote the ordered pair wrong, they're going to give it to you. Okay? So we always want to be focusing on labeling that 0 with a Z. Okay? So, for our y-intercept, it's the row that starts with 0. Okay? And you're going to label it B. So our y-intercept is the row that starts with 0, and we're always going to label it B. Our x-intercept, or 0, is the row that ends with 0. And what are we going to label that?
Z.
We're going to label it Z. And yes, I put a line through my Z's because they look like 2's. Okay? Huh?
Instead, I just wrote my Z really fast.
Yeah, and when I write mine fast, they look like, yeah. Okay. Questions about this? So far, so good? Okay. Now we're going to look at slope. Okay, so for slope is going to be delta y over delta x. Okay? So first of all, I can use any 2 points. Just like we talked about with the table, with the graph, I can use any 2 points I want to. They don't have to be right next to each other. I just need to use 2 points. Now, I'm not saying you have to, but if you're like me, you probably want to avoid fractions. You probably want to avoid decimals.
But what do fractions come with one of those?
And negatives. We'll talk about that. What I'm saying is when I look at the points in the table, if I can find, no, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Sometimes there's negatives. There's nothing but negatives. You got to use them. But if I can find points that are positive, if I can find points that are whole numbers that aren't fractions, I want to use those.
Could you use whole numbers that you could turn, could you use fractions that you could turn into whole numbers?
Absolutely, if you
so
could.
Like three halves is 1.5.
Yes, yeah, you could use numbers that you could turn into decimals. Again, some of y'all are like, Mrs. Deal, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of decimals. I'm not afraid of fractions. I'm not afraid of negative numbers. And good for you, because I am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, absolutely. So I'm saying delta y over delta x, but remember, you use whatever method that you prefer. If you prefer delta y over delta x, get down with your bad self. If you prefer the slope formula, go nuts. Okay, I don't care. Now, I will say, unless they give you a graph, you probably shouldn't prefer graphing. Because it's not like we all walk around with a piece of graph paper in our pocket. Okay? So, now, what I want you guys to do, I want you at your table groups, I want you to real quick talk about what 2 points you're going to use to find slope from this table. You decide what 2 points you want to use, and then we're going to talk about it. Take 15 seconds. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This table, what 2 points do you guys think you want to use?
Well, we have to do it out on the table?
You don't have to, but what? So tell me some ideas y'all had about 2 points. You said the last 2. What about you?
I said the x-axis, the x-intercept and the y.
So one of them said the last 2. One said the intercepts. What about y'all? So y'all said 0, 6, and 2, 9. What about y'all? 0, 6, yeah, 2, 9, 0, 6. What about y'all? They said the first 2. Okay, what about y'all? The last 2 here. Okay. What about y'all back there? 0, 6, and 2, 9. What about you guys? 0, 6, and 2, 9. So what about you?
I'm using the middle two.
These 2?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so you're going to, whatever points you thought that you wanted to use, you're going to use those to find slope now. Me, I'm going to use 0, 6, and 2, 9. Because despite the fact that I'm a math teacher, I am still afraid of making mistakes. I do not like to be wrong. So I'm using all integers, all positives, okay? So let's give it a go. Okay, so 6 is 9. 0 plus 2 is 2. I'm about to draw my little arrows. Okay, that's what I got.
I see what you did. I thought you did right.
Well, you can't. If I divide 3 by 2, you get 1.5.
So when you take your
No. Okay, 6 divided by 0. That only works if you have a 0, 0 row. You always do change in y over change in x.
So why did you do y over x on x?
Because I actually did change in y. I said, how did my y's change here? I changed, the distance between the y on these 2 points was 6. The distance between x on these 2 points was 4. Mm-hmm. That's how you find slope in a table. Changing y.
I got 3. It's the same as the last one.
Mm-hmm. It's the exact same data. Yeah.
The same as.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So what you did was you took the y and then you seen how many you need
Yeah.
to add to get to the
Yeah.
number.
So 6, add or subtract. So 6
Add or
plus
subtract.
3 is 9. 0 plus 2 is 2. 3 over 2 is my slope.
So then you just use those two numbers for your.
Mm-hmm.
But even though that's y, delta y over delta x. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So then my equation again would be y equals 3/2 x plus 6. All right. What questions can I answer?
So the.
Any questions?
Did
No?
you ask the school to give us
No,
better
I was gonna.
That is not an option.